It's early morning in Bangkok, October 6th, 1976. The sun hasn't fully risen yet, but Thammasat University is already surrounded. Inside the campus are students. Teenagers mostly. University kids. Workers. Activists. Some are asleep on classroom floors. Some are making coffee. Some genuinely believe negotiations are still possible. And outside the gates, thousands of armed men are waiting. Police officers, border patrol units, right-wing militias, former soldiers, ultra-royalist paramilitary groups. Machine guns are pointed directly at the campus. And within a few hours, bodies will be hanging from trees while crowds laugh and take photos. What happened at Thammasat University wasn't just a massacre. It was a moment where propaganda became permission, where fear turned ordinary people into monsters. And honestly, I think that's what makes this story so terrifying. Not just the violence itself, but how quickly human beings can be convinced that cruelty is patriotic. Because once people believe their enemies are less than human, almost anything becomes acceptable. This is the story of the October 6th massacre, one of the darkest and least discussed events in modern Thai history. Welcome to the podcast You Can't Unhear. To understand why this happened, we need to go back a few years earlier. During the 1960s and early 70s, Thailand was ruled by a military dictator named Field Marshal Phanom Kittikachorn. And this guy basically represented the classic Cold War strongman. He came to power through military coups, tightened control over the country, censored opposition, and maintained extremely close ties with the United States during the Vietnam War. Thailand became strategically important for the Americans. US aircraft used Thai bases during bombing campaigns across Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. And in return, the Thai military government received support, money, and protection. But while the government grew richer and more powerful, many ordinary people were getting tired of corruption, and Thanom's regime was notoriously corrupt. His son and father-in-law held enormous political influence. The government looked less like a democracy and more like a family business run by generals. Then, in 1971, Phanom staged a coup against his own government just to consolidate even more power. That move pushed people over the edge, especially students. And this part matters because student movements during the 1970s were becoming incredibly influential around the world. Young people weren't just quietly accepting authority anymore. They were protesting wars, corruption, inequality, dictatorships. Thailand was no exception. By 1973, student protests exploded across Bangkok. And these weren't tiny protests either. Hundreds of thousands of people joined. Students, office workers, middle-class families. People were genuinely demanding democracy. Then came October 14th, 1973. Government forces opened fire on protesters. More than 100 people were killed. But instead of crushing the movement, it backfired. The military leadership hesitated to escalate further, public anger exploded, and Phanom's regime collapsed. He fled the country. For a moment, it looked like democracy might actually survive in Thailand. But here's something people often miss about history. Removing a dictator is usually the easy part. Building stability afterward is much harder. Because the governments that followed Phanom were weak, divided, and deeply afraid of communism, and fear was spreading everywhere in Southeast Asia at the time. Vietnam fell to communist forces. Laos changed governments. Cambodia descended into chaos. conservative elites in Thailand started panicking. To them, student activists weren't idealistic young people anymore. They were potential revolutionaries. And that fear became fuel. Right-wing groups began organising aggressively. Organisations like the Village Scouts, Nawafon, and the Red Gower became powerful ultra-nationalist movements. And these groups weren't fringe internet trolls or random extremists. They were encouraged by political elites, military figures, police forces, and conservative media. That's the dangerous thing about propaganda. The scariest propaganda usually doesn't feel extreme to the people consuming it. It feels patriotic. It feels protective. It convinces people they're defending their country from some massive threat. And in Thailand during the mid-70s, the word communist became a weapon. Anybody demanding reform could suddenly be labelled anti-monarchy or anti-national. Things escalated even further. In September 1976, 2 Labour activists putting up anti-government posters were beaten to death and hung from a gate. Not secretly, publicly. Almost like a message. Many believed police officers were responsible. The murders terrified activists and students. But instead of backing down, protests grew louder. Then came the event that pushed everything toward catastrophe. Thanam returned to Thailand. After years in exile, he came back dressed as a Buddhist monk, claiming he had no political intentions. But almost nobody believed that. Who would? Students immediately saw it as the first step toward restoring military dictatorship, so protests erupted again. At Thammasat University in Bangkok, students organised demonstrations against his return. And then, on October 4th, student protesters staged a political play, reenacting the hanging of the 2 murdered activists. One of the actors reportedly resembled Thailand's crown prince. And that changed everything. Right-wing newspapers and military-controlled radio stations exploded with outrage. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't about dictatorship anymore. Now the students were being accused of insulting the monarchy. And in Thailand, that accusation is incredibly serious. The media began portraying the students as communist traitors trying to destroy the nation itself. Radio broadcasts urged citizens to kill the communists. Think about how dangerous that is. Not debate them. Not arrest them. Kill them. And when people hear that kind of messaging non-stop, eventually, violence starts feeling righteous. By October 5th, paramilitary groups and police had surrounded Thammasat University. Inside the campus, students were terrified but still hopeful. Some believed authorities would eventually negotiate. Others prepared for violence. Many stayed because leaving felt impossible. And then, before dawn on October 6th, the attack began. At around 5:30 in the morning, gunfire erupted. Police opened fire using machine guns, rifles, grenade launchers, and explosives. There were even reports of anti-tank weapons being used. Patrol boats on the nearby Chao Phraya River fired toward the campus from the water. Students were killed almost immediately. The authorities later claimed the students fired first. But investigators and historians have found little evidence supporting that. The reality is, this was overwhelmingly one-sided. Students scrambled for cover behind trees and concrete walls. Some tried to wave white flags. Others attempted to surrender. It didn't matter. The shooting continued. Then, paramilitary groups stormed the campus. And the terror didn't end here. What happened next wasn't just political violence. It became mob cruelty. Students trying to escape through the gates were beaten, lynched, mutilated, and humiliated publicly. One of the most infamous photographs from the massacre shows a dead student hanging from a tree while a man swings a metal chair at the corpse. And what always disturbs me about that image isn't only the brutality, it's the crowd. People smiling, watching, children standing nearby. Like this had become entertainment. That's the part people struggle to understand. How does a crowd reach that point emotionally? But history shows this pattern again and again. Once a group is fully dehumanized, public cruelty becomes possible. The victims stop being seen as students, or sons, or daughters, or human beings. They become symbols of the enemy, and then empathy disappears. Some students were stripped naked and forced to lie face down while being kicked and beaten. Women were sexually assaulted and mutilated. Corpses were burned. Others were dragged through crowds while people cheered. And police officers stood nearby, doing almost nothing to stop it. That detail matters, because this wasn't simply chaos. It was tolerated violence. By the time the massacre ended, officially around 45 people were dead and hundreds injured. But many historians believe the real death toll was significantly higher. And here's the most chilling part. That very afternoon, the military staged another coup. Using the violence as justification, the government claimed they had saved Thailand from a communist takeover. Democratic reforms from the previous 3 years were erased almost instantly. Thousands of activists fled into hiding or joined communist insurgent groups out of fear. The massacre achieved exactly what hardliners wanted. And for decades afterward, the event was barely discussed publicly. No major accountability. No meaningful prosecutions. Almost silence. Even today, many people simply refer to it vaguely as the October 6th event. Not massacre. Not state violence. Just the event. That says a lot. Because societies often soften language when they're uncomfortable, confronting what really happened. I think one of the biggest lessons from this story is how quickly fear can override humanity. The students at Thammasat weren't heavily armed revolutionaries. Most were idealistic young people demanding political reform, but propaganda transformed them into existential threats inside the public imagination. And once enough people believed that, the violence became possible. That's why extremist rhetoric is dangerous even before violence starts. Because language prepares people emotionally first. It trains people to stop seeing others as human. And once that line is crossed, atrocities become frighteningly easy. What happened at Thammasat University wasn't inevitable. It was built step by step. Political fear, propaganda, polarization, then violence. There's a memorial at Thammasat University honouring the victims. But for many outside Thailand, this massacre remains almost completely unknown, which is tragic. Because this isn't just Thai history, it's human history. A reminder of how fragile democracy can be. A reminder of how dangerous propaganda becomes when institutions encourage it. And a reminder that ordinary people are capable of terrifying things once cruelty becomes socially acceptable. The students at Thammasat wanted a better future. Instead, many of them became victims of one of the darkest political massacres of the 20th century. And decades later, the question still lingers. How many tragedies begin with people convincing themselves they're protecting their country? Stay safe out there, guys. See you on the next episode of the podcast You Can't Unhear.